actually asked me to fill in a discussion session. So that's what we're doing here because someone had to drop out. So I quickly came up with something that's been on my mind this semester. So for those of you who know me a bit, you'll know that I haven't been teaching for a long time. It's been quite a long time, actually. Maybe, I think it's like, might have been, it was pre-COVID. So for this, in 2024 semester 2, I went back to teaching after many years and taught a large subject of our Calculus 1 students. So I had about 500 students, and hadn't seen a student for a little while. So that was an interesting experience for me. And so I don't know, the analogy of a boiling frog keeps coming to mind when I think about student perception, student performance. And my question really was around, have the community noticed deterioration in the ability and capacity of students over the last few years? For me, it's quite stark because I've jumped over a number of years, and so I've come in for a long time, and I really did find a difference in the ability of our students. So that really was the start of the question, just to get you talking about what you're seeing in your classroom, and if there are any changes, good or bad, what sort of things are you doing to engage with the students today? So what we'd like to think about is what sort of really innovative things are you doing? Let's try and keep the conversation to things that we could go away and do ourselves. So if you've got, $50,000 worth of grants, or a university that's just made you restructure your whole curriculum, probably I'm not going to be able to do that when I go back to the university. So thinking about the sorts of things that you've got control over, and we've seen some great examples of that already today with Amanda's talk about her course, and even the things that Peter was just doing in his classroom. So first question, how are your students going? Are they getting better? Are they staying the same? Or are they not doing so well? So I've got some roving mics, so maybe we can hand a couple of these out. I know that Jim wants to say something, so I'm going to give it to him to start with. There you go, Jim.
I'm not sure I can make it. Actually, is Laura online?
Oh, no. You're going to ask me
yes.
to do special.
Laura, maybe I can defer to you to talk about the overall first year situation at UNSW, because I think you're probably more on top of that at that global level than me. Is that okay? I'm not putting you on the spot there, am I? I'm happy to talk.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, what exactly do you want? The change of level?
Maybe our focus would be, well, so Deb's question was, how are our students going? So maybe, if we could sort of talk about from COVID onwards, how they've been progressing, and maybe a focus would be fail rates in the major first year courses, for example. Has there been any appreciable change? What's the pattern, if there is one?
Well, the thing is, I would need data to say things which would be even a little bit precise. For sure, the problem we have, I mean, for fail rates, the thing is we adjust them and we tend to try to make them comparable to previous years. Our fail rates are usually around maybe 15%. That's considered very high. The university is on our back all the time. But I think there are several. 15. 15.
15. Oh, yeah, that's very low. That's very low, actually.
Yes, and I think that's what we tell them, it's worth in other places. And yeah, and also what I would really need to calculate, and I haven't had time, I'm sorry, is the proportion of students who actually fail and have showed up for the exam, turned in the assignments, just, those two. And I'm sure that if we were only to look at the fail rate of students who really tried until the end, it would be very low. Now, in terms of attention, in terms of level, I have to say I have the feeling spoon feeding them, but I have the feeling it's always been like that. The problems for me to evaluate is initially I was so shocked, but it was because I was comparing maybe to my souvenir or imagination of what students were. And actually, I have to say that I think in France, students arrive more prepared for university. There's more emphasis on rigor and everything at high school. So, for example, I know that in Sydney, some parents complain that the French school is a mini university. So for me, I was just observing. So it's hard to see the change because I'm getting used to how things are at UNSW. I have the feeling we're very, very nice and we're helping them as much as we can. We're dragging them through first year by doing weekly lessons to try to help them. So I have the feeling the level's not very high and it's not improving for sure. And the attention span is going down. And lectures have become unbearable for them. They just want the answer to their own question. They can't take to listen to an answer to a question they didn't ask. And they want the teacher, go faster, go slower at their own pace. But I think that's the evolution of the world, and that's unrelated to UNSW.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Laura. So others about, sorry.
So I just might quickly contribute
to
something from my teaching experience in the last maybe 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've really noticed a marked increase in the proportion of students who are openly explaining to me as their lecturer that they simply don't have time to give full attention to their coursework because of extracurricular activities, mostly paid work. And so, I joked with my third-year students this last term, that when I was at Melbourne Uni as an undergrad in the early 90s, I had 8 contact hours a week. I was doing an arts degree with a maths major. And I would spend a lot of my time with friends eating dim sims and drinking beer. And I was funded by the government to do that. And one of the students said, "Okay, boomer," in response to that. But I was just making it clear to them that I was empathizing with them. I understand that their circumstances have changed. For many students, they have no choice but to, do a lot of paid work and have their attention divided between their university studies and other commitments. Anyway, that was just
Thanks, Jim.
An observation.
So it's good. So one of the things that I was really noticing this time, and why I started to get concerned, was that the skills that the students have. So you have a sort of an expectation that students will know things when they come in. Call me crazy. But then when you're marking stuff, so you can see that they sort of get what you've been trying to teach them. But when on one line, A over B becomes A times B on the next line, or multiplying by 2x plus 2 without a bracket, it means that you're multiplying by 2x. So like the basic skills that the students have are so bad, so poor, that it's hard to drag them through that exam, even though they might sort of know what the approach is that they need to take to solve the problem, but they can't actually do any of the calculations.
Hi. It's not just that. I think their attitudes have changed as well. They just speak screaming babies all the time. They want you to tell them whatever they want to hear, and they don't want to think. They just want to be told the answer. They send so many email messages in the middle of the night. In the morning, you get another email to say, "I asked you this, you still haven't answered." During the weekend as well, and they make complaints all the time. They don't come to classes, as it was told here. When I asked a student, which she kept saying she's confused. I asked her, "Did you go to lecture?" "No." "Did you watch the lecture recording?" "No." "Did you go to tutorial?" "No." So how do you expect to be able to answer the question? She said, "I don't have time to watch all of these things." It's just, what do you want then? I mean, they're just screaming. They're not responsible, really. I don't think that they haven't matured, let alone their knowledge. They haven't matured to take the responsibility on their own to learn. Somehow there's something wrong.
Is that a common sort of impression that people are getting, that the level of responsibility that students are taking is much lower than it used to be? Yeah.
I think also the level of the priority they put on their university studies has dropped since maybe in the last 5 years, since COVID. I'm just getting more students who think that it's okay to break a fingernail and miss a test almost. the excuses and I couldn't do this, but you know, it's a mandatory requirement. I can't do this, or it was an exam. Oh, I wanted to go to a concert, or it's whatever. I think my sense is that's increasing. I can't say for sure because I've changed the cohorts I'm teaching about a year and a half ago. I sort of changed the cohort, and there are noticeable differences between different cohorts of students. Going back a little further though, if I go back to when some people know here, when Maths for Engineers prelims started at Western Sydney, this is a different sort of change of the level of background which we've seen go down for many years. Most students went straight into the first engineering subject because they could do the placement test. Now, just about no one or almost nobody goes in. So we're having a massive decrease in students' incoming level, and having just marked about 170 of the engineering maths ones exam, I can say exactly what you said about a half turning into something strange. The algebra was shocking from a majority of the students. If you've got a problem that takes 3 steps, the chances of them getting each step right is about 50%, maybe, something like that. So you can easily work out the probability of getting to the end of the problem correctly. It was shocking.
Hi.
Just wanted to say that I had 5 tutorials for Maths Modeling 2 at UTS this semester. Only 1 students came across all 5. So it was on evening classes, so it was harder. But literally 1 student to show up every single week, and that student is just a super smart, hardworking, dedicated students. The rest of them, every class 40 students, none of them show up. Only first session they come to see how chill it is, and because it's not compulsory, right? It's just optional. Attending tutorial is optional. And that's kind of something that I've been talking about with UTS staff and school kind of policy making, that don't you think at first year, these students have to attend tutorials at least to build up some foundations, because they're terrible. And I work with them like before coming in there because of my business. I work with kids. So I know their level, and they also, I look at the stats and it shows that the level is pretty bad. And then they come to uni, and then also uni is spoon feeding it. It's really like, chill, come on. And I don't know. I think even maybe universities are taking it so easily these days. And I don't know if this is the best way of treating it. So I don't know. It's just kind of thought about that. Would be the best policy to really go for it?
Well, I don't think we've got policy change on the cards at the minute. But I was wondering if there's any good news stories then. So I think generally people are feeling the same.
I can share some good news.
Oh, good. Excellent.
I've been experimenting with live streaming classes, and some of my colleagues were very concerned that they would result in even further plummets in attendance. But what I've found is 10 to 20% of the class will happily tune in for a live stream. And maybe I'm capturing people who wouldn't be otherwise able to be on campus. You know, maybe they've got childcare constraints. Maybe they live 2 hours away and it's just not worth coming in on a bus for 2 hours to go to a single class. But they will tune into the live stream. So it's something that kind of stemmed out of COVID. You know, people were playing around with live streaming and Zooming. I don't know if many people are still doing that, but I was live streaming prior to COVID because I teach a course with distance students. And I'm really surprised at how engaged some of them are. So it's something that's positive, and maybe we should be thinking about live streaming stuff as a way to reach people.
Yeah. So we live stream all our lectures still, so they're also recorded. So I actually haven't been in to see the numbers to see how many of my students were actually on live.
What am I using? I've ditched Zoom. Zoom was not fun. I've tried all sorts of things. At the moment, we are using Panopto for our live streaming, and I've now got I've tried various different technologies. If anyone wants to talk live streaming, happy to. I was on the bleeding edge for a while, so you turn up with 2 laptops, one to run the live stream, one to teach from, and a tripod and a camera and a microphone system. So it was about a 20-minute setup before I could get going. But now I've got it so that I can rock into a room zero setup. It's all pre-configured using the existing lecture recording software, and it just works.
Yeah. And have you found that that's made a difference to the students' results over time, though, or
Too early to say.
too early to say?
Too early to say.
Excellent.
We absolutely still give recordings, but that's a really good idea. Do we have to just live stream? And if you miss the live stream, too bad.
Yeah, no, we do have to give recordings too. So yeah.
Yeah. So that was good news.
Yeah.
On the not so good news, not sure if you're aware of Jonathan Haidt's book on the anxious generation, but it's a really good read because it addresses why we're seeing some of the behavior we're seeing in our students and why their levels of anxiety are skyrocketing in our current students. And so it's good to have a sense of why things are happening and what the impact of giving smartphones to young teens has been. By
engaging with those stories and that kind of literature, you're actually aiming to dig a bit deeper and to ask questions about, okay, these changes are happening. Why are they happening? Without instantly ascribing, a sort of a moral depravity to the students, to take a compassionate view and to say, all things being equal, they're good people. Why has the behaviour changed?
Yeah, so that's back then starts to be the solution. So because we're not going to change that, so what do we do? What are you pointing at? Sorry, what are you pointing at?
Jason. Sorry, Jason first. Yeah, I won't.
Law,
Thanks,
did
guys.
you want to say?
No, sorry. My name was just mentioned there. I can stop if you want me to.
Yeah, no, go, Jason.
No, that's fine.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Look, I just wanted to talk quickly about emphasis and teaching. I've had a lot of experience teaching in high schools before I came to UTS. Obviously, I'm an older starter as a tertiary entrant. I've been there for 14 years, but that's young given my age. So UTS has a pathway, and I was thinking about law, and I consult to a lot of the top 50 schools. I do a lot of work with particularly a couple of the top 5 schools. The pathway at UTS was established because we can't ask students for prerequisites. We only make a recommendation. What's been happening in the 10 years that I've been testing students and placing them in our pathway is that we've got an increasing number of students who've done standard maths, which means they come completely unprepared for calculus and any kind of algebra that's tricky. So the solution was to test them and put them into a foundational mathematics subject, which is a pre-stage 1 subject. Effectively, it's an intervention. And what we do is we place those students who don't have the attendance skills and requisite skills in that subject, and that gives us the semester to get them organised and get them ready for the challenges of our Maths 1, our Maths Modelling 1. And so far to date, it's been fairly successful. I was tapped on the shoulder a couple of years ago to actually take the subject, the intervention subject, because they wanted to enhance what was going on in that space. Recently, as a transition person who goes to between schools, I went out to a Western Sydney school, was a private school, and man, what were they doing with their year 12? And I only had them for a few days and I was able to get them on track. But what's happening in schools at the moment is really two sides of a coin. In the schools that I consult, the kids are under a great deal of pressure for performance. They're getting cycle tests, they call them, constantly from year 7. So they're getting this kind of, we've got to perform, we've got to give out, we've got to do this. It's an outward thing from the student. And the students that relax and chill and get good results tend to be the ones who are kind of encouraged to come on a bit of a journey and understand what they're doing from a more basic view and walk all the way through. So students who are doing Extension 1 and Extension 2 can't. Extension 1's a very difficult subject. They can't do that if they don't calm down and relax. So it doesn't surprise me that someone from UNSW, for example, where you do have prerequisites that are firm, unlike UTS, is saying that there's a lot of students who are just vibrating, I've got to give an answer, I've got to get performance, rather than I've got to sit down and explore and work through. So my encouragement would be in this space, because there are so many things that get proffered up as to do, my encouragement in this space would be it's really about teaching emphasis. What are the topics that you're emphasising as you march through the curriculum? Because we can't do everything when we're cleaning up, when we're mopping up, when we're taking students without algebra, without any kind of calculus experience. So there's a few things that I've developed that I emphasise, and that's probably it for another time and another discussion. But if you can identify the areas that you're willing to put your reputation on and lean into that, then students can they can learn, and then they can start to get the rewards they want in terms of performance.
Thanks, Jason.
So, yeah, something different.
Thanks. So I'd like to, we don't have very long left, so I'd like to just spend the last 5 minutes asking people if they have any interventions or changed their assessment for these reasons and have been successful. Are you telling me that you have and you're the emperor of... is that what you're going to tell us, Laura? You've changed something?
No, earlier you asked me what had changed. And suddenly now I know we haven't really managed to solve all problems. And in fact, now I think the students that get out of first year, a lot of them can't meet deadlines much more than before. That's an evolution. They ask for special consideration. And we also have a very huge increase of special consideration, which is funny because now UNSW says we have work-ready graduates. And I don't think employers find ours that are, our graduates are better than they were 10 years ago.
Thanks, Laura. So some solutions, some interventions that people have tried that have been successful, some interventions that have tried that people haven't been as successful maybe as they would have liked.
More tutorials. That's really improved things.
One quick one is we've started offering the opportunity to have a second crack at a test if you missed the first test. We didn't used to do this. It used to just be an aggregat, move the weight to the exam. The problem is we get lots of people who apply for an aggregat for the first test and the second test and the exam. So
yes.
We've now started going with, actually, I'll go to the trouble of writing a second test on the same concepts, different questions, and then they can't get around that because they apply for an aggregat and I say, oh, so sorry to see that you broke a fingernail. You now have an opportunity to have a second crack. We'll have it 2 weeks later. And it has actually been really useful, particularly because we see a lot more aggregate applications than we ever saw in the past. I don't know if other people are finding this trend, but it's way through the roof. Sometimes 10, 15% of the class are applying for an aggregate.
Yeah.
And so you need some data. You need to be able to say, yes, they actually had a go at a test at some point. So don't be afraid to run a second test. Bit of work, but it's worth it.
We have to run second tests. We can't adjust marks. We run, but the hilarious one for me this time was I shouldn't say this probably. Oh shit, it's anonymous. I had a student who had a panic attack in the exam and wanted a second test. And the reason that she had a panic attack in the exam was she hadn't handed in her assignments, hadn't done the mid-semester test. So she walked in 30% down and realised in the exam that she wasn't going to pass. And she got special consideration because she had a panic attack.
I did talk about this already in my talk, but probably worth saying again, early assessment has helped, at least in our experience, and it can be a challenge because how can you assess students on something if you haven't taught it yet? So it can be challenging to introduce more early assessment, but if there's a way to do it, some potential benefits there.
If the students can take the feedback at the time. Anthony, I'm going to ask you a question with that notice because I did notice something that you did, and I'd like to know how it went. You've got cheat sheets in the Calc 2, and Anthony and I work together. This is how I know. Cheat sheets in the Calc 2 exam,
yes,
and how's it going? Is that helping?
Well, pre-COVID, we didn't allow any notes. Our exams were totally closed book, and then during COVID, we had Zoom exams, and so we allowed students limited amount of notes, 2 pages of notes while they're doing Zoom supervised exams, because you can't really prevent them from pasting up their entire lecture slides on the wall behind the screen in A3 size or whatever, so to mitigate that. And so we just stuck with allowing a page of notes after once we kind of went back to supervised. And I think it's, I haven't noticed an enormous difference in how students performed as a result of that, but I think it's a good learning tool for the students to take the time to prepare a good summary note, a good page of summary notes. I think that's a good activity for the students. So, I mean, when I was an undergrad, I went and routinely wrote my own 2-page summary of the subject, but I think students don't have a lot of students don't have the study skills to know to do those things themselves. So by kind of requiring them, or not requiring, but at least, normalizing that you have a summary page of notes for the exam helps promote those good study skills.
Yep.
Assuming they do it themselves. If someone does it and they just copy it from that.
Well, sure. Well, we can't prevent that, but we do say in the, one of the last lectures when we're talking about exam study tips that the best thing is you prepare your own notes. You lose all the benefit if you just copy off someone else's.
Mm-hmm. Leanne and then Adele. Oh, time's up. Leanne's telling me that time's up. Afternoon tea, everybody. It was an interesting session. It's a good conversation to have. I think if we keep this conversation, maybe keep it going offline, if you've got some really good ideas that you didn't think of now or things that you wanted to say, send an email in afterwards, and maybe we can collate some ideas, put it up on the website so that people can see a few ideas about it, because it's a tricky one. And I was just Jason, who was online, who I can't see now, talking about UTS and the skills that students come in. Our students come in with very high ATARs and maths methods, and they can't, and their arithmetic is awful. So I can't imagine what it's like at some of the other institutions based on. But I also we're wrapping up now, Leanne. Yes, everybody's getting their afternoon tea. Just thinking about whether this is still a COVID hangover, because these kids who are in first year now would have been in maybe year 8, 9, 10 at COVID, and all of that stuff that I'm seeing is the sort of stuff that would have been in the classroom, and the teachers would have been going, you know what, that's not what you do, because the teachers are in the room, they're hanging over their shoulder, they're looking at what they're doing, and these students haven't had the benefit of that. So just wondering if this is a big impact and whether it will phase out. Not sure. Year 9, yeah. So this is really that formative, period where they're starting to get all this stuff done. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not a full statement, but it's so it'd be interesting to keep our eyes on it and share some of those stories. Thank you. We're going to have